sin. He had compassion for children, the elderly, the poor, and the needy. He had such a great love that he could beg our Heavenly Father to forgive the soldier who drove the nails into his hands and feet. He taught us that if we do not forgive others, our Father in heaven will not forgive us. He said, I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. For if you love them which love you, what reward have ye? We must learn to feel toward others as Jesus did.
Thank you. So in the book it talks about how we can become more charitable. And they listed 4 things that we can focus on in our own lives. The first was we can become more charitable by studying the life of Jesus Christ and keeping his commandments. The second thing was that when we have uncharitable feelings, we can pray to have greater charity. The third thing is that we first need to learn to love ourselves. And I thought that was a really big thing, because when we're comfortable with ourselves, then it's easier to reach out to others and understand them and love them. And fourth is avoid thinking we are better than other people. When I think of charity, like I said, my thoughts turn towards mothers. And since this is Mother's Day, I thought it would be nice for us to focus on our mothers and how they've exemplified charity to us. So I'd love to hear from you guys on how your mothers show charity and love in your homes. For me, both my mother and grandmother have been good examples to me of charity. My grandmother has always gone out of her way to be a presence in my life as well as her other 21 grandkids. And that's a lot of work to have each one of them feel special, and she's always done that. She raised her children as a single mother during a time when women didn't receive equal pay for equal work. So she had to work her tail off to provide for her 4 children. She's a very fun-loving woman who always thinks the best of everyone. And I asked her today if she would come up and talk a little bit about some examples of charity in her life. And then after she talks, I'd like to open it up and give everyone an opportunity to talk about some examples of charity in their own lives. So, Grandma?
And you can all call me Grandma. Charity's a big word. And I was raised in a home that was full of charity. Oh, I can read this. I was fortunate to have 2 wonderful women in my life who gave me examples of pure charity. Lula Clayton Wynn, my mother, was a beautiful person who gave unconditional love and charity to her 8 children and all those around her. She was always tending to the widows and the poor in our ward. She was the Relief Society president for the first 10 years of my life, and she truly magnified her calling. I remember Mother sitting up all night with the sick in her ward. She spent many hours working, making bread and taking it to the poor and the needy. And we had a cow and it gave lots of creamy milk, and my mother used to make lots of butter. And she put it in these big round pans that were not too deep and put them in this little cupboard we had that was cooled from the basement by vents. And refrigerators weren't thought of too much. In order to get the cream to come to the top, and she put it in the cooler cupboard and made lots of butter and shared it with all the people in the ward and the widows. During fruit season, I remember Mother having all these ladies over, and they would help put up the peaches or whatever fruit was in season. And she'd give them all a bushel for helping. My mother made head cheese, sold cottage cheese, and then shared it with everyone. Although life was hard, she was always cheerful and had kind words for all. And when I came in When I come into Relief Society today, she was playing Have I Done Any Good in the World Today. That was my mother's favorite song. I bet she sang that every day of her life. And she was always doing good. Tragedy struck when I was 10 years old. My mother passed away with pneumonia, leaving my father with 3 younger children still at home. I, being the youngest, was brokenhearted. My 2 older sisters were married and lived close, so they took over helping my dad. However, it was my oldest sister, Ethel, who had just lost her husband from pneumonia 2 months before my mother passed away, who showed the greatest courage and sacrifice to me. At the age of 26, Ethel, my sister, was left to raise these 3 boys, their ages 8, 5, and 3, on her own. She moved into our house and took on the task of raising her 3 youngest siblings. She treated me like a mother, loving and caring on herself, and she helped my father through a very difficult time. I loved her with all my heart, because she was always there for me until the day she died at the age of 92. I'm so thankful to have had these 2 special mothers in my life. I know their example made me a better person. And I wanted to add that there's one more very special mother in my family, and I would like to pay tribute to her today. My beautiful daughter-in-law, Sandy Nelson. She's an example of ultimate, so full of charity and love for all her children and grandchildren, which are my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And even an old codger like me, she shows me love and appreciation all the time. If any of you would like to see motherhood in motion, just come by the Nelson house anytime, in the day or night. There are two great mothers there, always in action. And one's in action back then. It was funny this morning as I sat down to put my shoes on in the bedroom. I looked up and on the desk was this little framed picture of Christ. And I thought, well, I'm just going to jot that down so everybody will know what I read this morning. And it was a picture of Christ, and this is what it said on the inscription. I never said it would be easy. I only said it would be worth it. So, isn't that the truth? So I guess that's the end of my notes, so I have to sit down. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has an example that they'd like to share of just of charity or focusing on our mothers or our grandmothers or anyone important in our life? Yes.
I'm going to say 2 things before the entire room starts crying and I can't say anything. One, I think it is beautiful that her mother passed away at 10, but yet her beginning of her story sounded like she's been her whole life with her mother. Like, for only knowing her for 10 years, she sounded like her best friend forever. So, that part I love the most. 2, I can say honestly that I'm the 12th of 13 kids, and I had an 80 father, and I have 8 brothers and 4 sisters, and never once in my lifetime ever can I remember my mother, like, singling any of us out. She loved every one of us, like, we were the only ones ever. So, I give my mother tons and tons and tons of credit for who I am, because she was a very, very good role model. I love my mother. She is my best friend. Thank you.
Yes.
I love my mother dearly, but this story isn't about her.